Well done. Let us now share the screen. There we go. Okay, as always, if you cannot see a document that says Meditation, Judaism, and Self-Mastery, please raise your hand. Okay, we're continuing our deep dive into meditation and self-mastery. A lot of meat and potatoes in this stuff. And we've gone through Rabbi Kaplan. We should be able to return to him. We are in the middle of the Ramchal's Mesilat Yesharim, Path of the Just. And we're finding such reinforcement for what Rabbi Kaplan says. And not just what Rabbi Kaplan says, what Dr. Maxwell Maltz says in Psychocybernetics. That's why I grouped these three sources together, because they are all echoing one another. It's all the same stuff. Self-mastery is requiring, as we are seeing time and time again, mindfulness, proper programming for your operating system, and controlling your mind so that you follow the good track and not the bad track. We'll get into those tracks later on this evening. Okay, you can see we've covered a lot of ground in Jewish meditation. Last week, we did go over Mesilat Yesharim. Let me just see this here. We talked about the trait of watchfulness. The Ramchal mentioned watchfulness, and he gave a number of examples of watchfulness, which we picked up on as being centered around mindfulness. Okay, what does this mean? He quoted Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah. He said, Jeremiah would bemoan on the evil of his contemporaries' affliction with the disease of this trait. We'll get into that in a second. They would turn a blind eye to their deeds, not putting heart to consider what they were doing, whether to do or refrain from doing it. They didn't think, what's the right path? Regarding them, he said, no man regrets of his evil, saying, what have I done? Each one running to his own course as a horse rushes into the battle. These guys are not sitting down and looking at themselves and saying, what am I doing right and what am I doing wrong? Yirmiyahu protested that. The Ramchal is using Yirmiyahu as an example of people that are not doing it. Yirmiyahu is complaining about that. The explanation is that they would pursue and go by the momentum of habit and conduct without leaving themselves time to consider their deeds and ways. Thus they fell into evil without even seeing it. Now, remember last week the Ramchal defined the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, as, in our terms, you're just following the contents of your mind, just your mind taking over. You're not controlling your thoughts. Your thoughts are controlling you. And even if they're good thoughts, if you're not in control, they could lead you astray. It's like the inmates running the asylum. They need you to be the director. You need to have an operating system in place, so to speak, so that the software is controlled and executed the right way. That's actually a pretty good analogy. So he's saying what you need to do is develop the operating system. You need to sit down and have the mindfulness, be able to meditate and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, all the same, except this is where I am. And then have the presence of mind to say, I'll choose that, but I'm not going to choose this. Okay. And of course, the way you do that is by proper education, so that you're feeding the commands of the operating system with the ability to make the right choices. That's where the education and the programming comes in. You're programming your operating system. And Maxwell Maltz gets into that nicely, which we'll discuss here. But here, we're getting the good Jewish framework for this from Rabbi Kaplan and from the Ramchal. Okay. In truth, this is one of the cunning strategies of the evil inclination, to constantly burden people's hearts with his service, so to leave them no room to look and consider which road they are taking. People become obsessed. They drive themselves crazy. They're always on the move. Got to do this, got to do this. They're being driven by their mind. We should be driving the mind. So the Ramchal is acutely aware of the need for people to regain control of their mind. Therefore, according to our definition, he's talking all about meditation. That's exactly what Rabbi Kaplan has been saying from day one. The Ramchal is reinforcing that. Those of us who do not control the contents of our mind and let the mind drive us end up like these people that Yirmiyahu is criticizing. These guys are just rushing around, going through the motions. No purpose, no meaning. And the Yirmiyahu continues, and he's quoting Yirmiyahu, for he knows that if they were to put their ways to heart, even the slightest bit, certainly they would immediately begin to feel regret for their deeds. The remorse would go and intensify within them until they would abandon the sin completely. So the Ramchal is pointing out from Yirmiyahu that, hey, if these guys sat down on the cushion, did the meditation, so to speak, got to the proper programming, they'd say, whoa, I am going down the wrong track. Who's in charge here? It's not the stuff that's coming out of my mind, it's me. Okay, so that's where we were last week. The Ramchal basically saying we really need to have control over our thoughts and pick and choose what thoughts we're going to think and which ones we're going to follow. And he picks up on that with the second part of his essay, Divisions of Watchfulness, which we will get into right now. So let's now stop the share, go to this. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's just see something here. Okay, hold on. Take a commercial break here. This show was brought to you by Johnson Wax. Women can even use Johnson Wax on their dining room floor in their high heels. The commercials say so. Okay, can everybody see this website with where it says Mesilat Yesharim Path of the Just? If you cannot, raise your hand. Okay, let's move this over here. All right, again, the Ramchal has this word watchfulness. Which we're interpreting as being mindfulness, dedicated mindfulness, mindfulness of what's going on, with the addition of being able to make your choice as to what you're going to think and what you're going to do. Okay. Watchfulness is not just being aware, but making conscious decisions of what to think and do. Okay. And he starts off to say, he who wants to watch over himself must investigate two matters. They are the first, that he contemplates what is the true good for man to choose and what is the true evil for him to flee from. Okay, so obviously you need some kind of education as to what's right and what's wrong. Okay, you need to know this. The second, on the actions which he does to determine if they are in the category of the good or the evil. This applies both to times when he is in the act of doing and when not in the act of doing. When in the act of doing, that he not do any act without first weighing it on the scales of this understanding. Not in the act of doing, that he bring up before himself the remembrance of his deeds in general and weigh them likewise in these scales to determine what they what they contain of evil in order to relinquish it, and what of good in order to perpetuate it and strengthen himself in it. If he finds them of the evil, he should then contemplate and investigate, reasoning out a strategy to employ in order to turn away from that evil and cleanse himself of it. Okay. So what you need to do, what he says we need to do is, what's the right thing? What's the wrong thing, generally speaking? And then specifically, what do I do? Do I do stuff that's right, or do I do stuff that's wrong? And if so, do I have any corrections to make? Now, I want to point out something here to reinforce this point. Here we go. I want to point something out from Steven Siebold here. We've talked to him, world-class expert, trainer of the top people. He says this exact point: champions are congruent. Congruency between your vision and your action will determine whether you are a visionary or a daydreamer. As you know, one of the defining characteristics of champions is that they know exactly what they want, why they want it, and how to get it. Their actions are congruent with the size and scope of their vision. While average performers wish for the stars, they rarely back up their big dreams with world-class action. What does the Ramchal say? The second, on the actions which he does to determine if they are in the category of the good or evil. Are the actions congruent with the vision? If you have a vision of the good, are your actions congruent with that vision? Champions know that the road to uncommon success and emotional fulfillment is paved with all-out massive action. This congruency integrates their belief with their behavior. The masses have retained a set of limiting beliefs from childhood and continue to have these beliefs reinforced and validated by others around them. The likelihood of them achieving outstanding results is slim to none unless they are exposed to a higher level of awareness and recognize it. Higher level of awareness. Where do we get a higher level of awareness? Can somebody say Torah? Okay, so Siebold is indirectly putting in an argument for Torah education, because that's where we get a sense of what's right and what's wrong. So those people, that the number one problem with people that aren't learning is that they're not exposing themselves to the higher way, and so therefore they don't put themselves in a position to realize, wait a minute, what I'm doing is wrong, because they haven't taught themselves what's right. To determine the size of the champion, check for congruency between their vision and their habits, actions, and behaviors. If they are incongruent, performers have one of two choices: upgrade their habits, actions, and behaviors, or reduce the size and scope of their vision. That's not an option for us. We can't say, well, okay, I'm not really doing so many mitzvot. What I'll do is I'll pretend to only follow like 20% of the Torah. Okay, that's not what they're going to do. This congruency model is what world-class coaches have used for years to keep their performers on track. It's the reason creating a detailed, emotionally charged vision is the first step in the mental toughness process. We review our national vision every week with the laning of the Torah, and of course the study during the week. That's how we renew. That's how we get our detailed, emotionally charged vision. And that's how, with all the commentaries and all the learning and all the principles and all the stuff that goes ahead, that's how when we sit down and we're mindful and we're meditating and we're saying, all right, where do I stand? Where do I stand? Where do I stand? Okay, well, what did I just learn? What have I learned about what I'm supposed to be doing as a Jew and as a person? Okay, okay, well, I really shouldn't have pushed that little old lady across the street. I probably should have walked her. Okay, that kind of stuff. Okay, so isn't it interesting how Siebold, one of the modern experts, is echoing exactly what the Ramchal is saying? Okay, Next point. Our sages of blessed memory taught us this in their saying, it would have been preferable for a person had he not been created. But now that he has been created, let him examine pish push his deeds. Others say, let him feel out, mashmesh, his deeds. Okay. See how these two terms are very good and beneficial instructions. Examining pish push of deeds is to investigate generally one's deeds and inspect them to see whether they contain deeds which one does not do, namely that are not in line with the commandments of God and the statutes. All that he finds of these, he would eradicate them from the world, his world. Feeling out mishmush of deeds, on the other hand, is investigation even on the good deeds themselves to inspect and see if they contain any motive which is not good or any evil component which he needs to remove and eradicate. This is so insightful. This is, I think, one of many indications why the Ramchal has such integrity, because he's saying two things. One is you take a broad brush and you say, okay, how'd I do today? How'd I do this week? And am I doing stuff that's not going to get me on target? Okay, if that's the case, I should eliminate that stuff, not do that stuff. And what remains is only the stuff I should be doing. But we're not off the hook yet. The second thing, this mishmush, is basically saying, let's take a look at the good deeds. Am I doing them for the right reasons? Like one example that's common today is, am I giving tzedakah just because they'll put my name on the chair? I mean, come on. You can come up with 10,000 examples of that. So he's basically saying, we're not off the hook just by saying, well, that's good, that's bad, I'm only going to do the good. Are you doing the good for the right reasons? I think that's really thorough, and that's what a lot of people need to hear. Okay. Still on target here. This is analogous to feeling out a garment to ascertain whether it is good and strong or weak and frayed. So too he should feel out his deeds to ascertain their nature through an absolutely thorough examination, meaning a meticulous examination to the furthest limit possible until they are all left pure and clean. The general principle that a man inspects all of his deeds and watch over all of his ways to not leave for himself any bad habit or bad trait, all the more so any transgression or sin. I see a need for a man, obviously man or woman, to be meticulous and weigh his ways each and every day, like the great merchants who continuously evaluate all of their business matters in order that they not degenerate. He should fix definite times and hours for this weighing, so that it not be haphazard, but rather with great regularity, for it yields great results. Whoa! Two types of meditation already we're covering here. One is, one is the meditation when you're just being mindful of the good and the bad and the ugly that's inside your brain, outside your mind. You take that seed inside your lave and you say, okay, show me, subconscious, show me what you got. You have to be mindful in the sense that you have to be able to just be centered and say, okay, let it all come out, as opposed to like, I only want to see the good stuff. I want to suppress the bad stuff. No, we don't do that when we meditate, and you should develop the skill so you don't do that here. You got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you have to do this review on a regular basis. That's the meditation. You sit down and you do a self-assessment. That's a meditation. Rabbi Kaplan keeps talking about that. Where am I at? What am I doing? What do I need to do? That is a Jewish meditation. That's a meditation not just for Jews. People across the globe do that. And he's stressing it's got to be a set time to eat, set time to sleep, set time to meditate. Okay. Otherwise, if it's done haphazard, you don't get the great results. Our sages of blessed memory taught us explicitly the need for this accounting, as they said in Baba Batra. Therefore the rulers said, let us enter into an accounting. Therefore the rulers of their evil inclination said, "Come and consider the accounting of the world, the loss incurred by doing a mitzvah against the gain earned through it, and the gain obtained by doing a sin against the loss incurred. Is it worth it?" Okay. This true counsel could not have been given, nor could its truth be recognized, except by those who had already gone out of the hands of their evil inclination and ruled over it. For one who was still held captive in the prison of his evil inclination, his eyes do not see this truth, and he is incapable of recognizing it. For the evil inclination literally blinds his eyes. He is like one walking in darkness where there are stumbling blocks before him, but his eyes do not see them. Here he's giving Chazal, the sages, the credit due and giving them their esteem that they should have. These guys could not be teaching us the truth of, in our terms, the importance of controlling the contents of your mind had they not been doing it themselves. How else could they teach it? These people, they couldn't even come up with it if they weren't doing it. So that almost sounds like you should take it, goes without saying, but it's important to recognize this is truth because it's true for these guys who are teaching us. And again, he's using the term evil inclination. We're talking about the basic uncontrolled mind that takes over. The same thing, because inevitably, and we'll learn more about it, inevitably, if you just let the mind run amok, it leads you down the wrong path. Why? Part of it is because, as Maxwell Maltz says, we've got a lot of negative programming that we've just picked up because of repetition of negative stuff, because of authority figures telling us negative stuff, because of high impact experiences which we respond to negatively or we walk away from with a negative impact. Okay, we got a lot of negative stuff in here, but more than that, if we let the mind control what we're doing and we don't control it, we just end up doing stuff. It's like in this last parsha, carry, that word carry that was used 7 times in Bechukotai. You just leave things to chance. And what is the big message of Bechukotai? Guys, like, if you want to just lead a life, leave it up to chance, good luck with that. I'm out of here. You don't got me. You don't got my guidance. Good luck with that. It's the same thing. You live a life based on chance. If you don't control the mind, because you're just going to be doing whatever the whim is, whatever it's a bad master. As I say, the mind is a great servant, but a bad master. Okay. All right, now he's talking about darkness and how you live in a darkness if you let your mind control. We get that. Okay. What is that life based on chance? They feel as secure as an edifice, and they fall before having any knowledge whatsoever of the stumbling block. All right, you don't know what you're getting into. Worse, what happens if you're not mindful? The second error, and this is even worse than the first, is that the darkness, living without being enlightened, living without the guiding light of Torah, living without knowing what you're doing, the darkness distorts their sight until they literally see evil as if it were good and good as if it were evil. Thus they strengthen and clenching to their evil ways. For not only do they lack the proper vision to see the truth, to perceive the evil right in front of their eyes, but they also see fit to conjure up great proofs and convincing evidences to support their evil logic and false ideas. Can anybody say this describes the evil Marxists? I can say that. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. Not only do you lead this life, a haphazard life off the derrick, but you end up, good becomes bad and bad becomes good. You have no values. no values. And so you just have to just you can't make this heshbon, you can't make this reasoning about what's worth it. Is it worth doing bad or worth doing good? You just do. Wow. This is the great evil which envelops them and clings to them, carrying them to the abyss of destruction. This is what Scripture states. The heart of this people has become fattened, and its ears heavy, their eyes covered shut, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and turn back and be healed. That's from Isaiah. All this is due to their being under the influence of darkness, an unmindful life, and held captive under the dominion of their evil inclination, as we've been calling it, their mind run amok. But those who already escaped from this prison are able to see the truth clearly and can counsel other people on it as the sages are counseling us. And Rabbi Kaplan, and he keeps giving these analogies, which we don't have to get into. And what is the counsel that those who rule over the evil inclination give us? Let us enter into an accounting. Come and consider the accounting of the world, for they already experienced, saw, and learned that this alone is the true path leading a man to the good which he seeks, and that there is none other beside it. Follow the wisdom of the masters. The summary of all the matter is that a man must contemplate with his intellect always, at all times, and also during the fixed appointed time of solitude, what is the true path according to the Torah that man must walk upon, and afterwards to come to reflect on his own deeds, to ascertain if they are traveling in this path or not. For through this certainly it will be easy for him to purify himself of all evil and to correct all of his ways, as Scripture says, weigh the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. And let us search and examine our ways, and we will return to God. That's from Eicha, Lamentations. That is what the Ramchal is talking about when he's talking about watchfulness. We'll continue this. We have only one or two more segments of the Ramchal. We'll continue this next week. Now, let's just see what additional information Bhante can give us. Okay. Okay. We're talking about concentration on all activities, being mindful off the cushion. The practice of mindfulness is supposed to be a universal practice. You don't do it sometimes and drop it the rest of the time. You do it all the time. Meditation that is successful only when you are withdrawn in some soundproof ivory tower is still undeveloped. Insight meditation, which is what we're doing, is the practice of moment-to-moment mindfulness. And remember we said a couple of weeks ago, you don't have to demand of yourself that you're aware of yourself 24/7. Start with being aware during your meals, or when you drive, or when you do this, or when you do that, or when you cook, or when you're with person X, or when you're with person Y. Take it off in chunks. And that'll develop mindfulness of that situation, plus it'll ebb over into other situations. And you'll do it more. Then next week you'll do two situations. The meditator learns to pay bare attention to birth, growth, and decay of all the phenomena of the mind. She turns from none of it and lets none of it escape. This includes thoughts and emotions, activities and desires, the whole show. She watches it all and watches it continuously. It matters not whether it is lovely or horrid, beautiful or shameful. She sees the way it is and the way it changes. No aspect of experience is excluded or avoided. It is a very thoroughgoing procedure. And again, I am enforcing, this is like in the pre-valuating stage. This is the core, this is the foundation. You can't correct behaviors until you let yourself become aware of the behaviors. Bhante is talking about the fundamental first, foundational practice of you have to develop the skills and the guts to face yourself as you are. Then you let your Torah programming kick in and say, all right, well, I'm admitting of the fact that I do X and I really shouldn't. But you can't even make that evaluation unless you admit you're doing it. So Bhante is teaching us a skill, and it has to be a learned skill that's strengthened. Like, I have good and bad and ugly. I'll keep some of this, but I'll get rid of some of that. If you are moving through your daily activities and you find yourself in a state of boredom, then meditate on the boredom. Find out how it feels, how it works, and what it is composed of. If you are angry, meditate on your anger. Explore the mechanics of anger. Don't run away from it. If you find yourself sitting in the grip of a dark depression, meditate on the depression. Investigate depression in a detached and inquiring way. This is like so important. I'm nasty. I'm a nasty guy. Meditate on the nastiness and you'll let the whole thing unravel. Okay, I accept the fact I'm nasty. And then you'll learn, oh yeah, I'm nasty in these situations. Like you'll take a step back and you'll take a step back and you realize, oh yeah, I get like this. I get like this with these people. The thing will unfold if you let it. And you'll learn a lot. But you need to have the skill and the discipline to just take a step back and not try to squish it and not try to judge it and just say, oh, yeah, I see that. I get really nasty when I eat too much sugar. I get really nasty when whatever. Explore the maze and chart its pathways. That way you will be better able to cope with the next depression that comes along. Yeah, you'll be in more control. Meditating your way through the ups and downs of daily life is the whole point of Vipassana, this insight meditation, which is regular meditation that even Rabbi Kaplan talks about. This kind of practice is extremely rigorous and demanding, but it engenders a state of mental flexibility that is beyond comparison. That is really true. A meditator keeps his mind open every second. Right. You want to be more open-minded about ideas in the world? Well, you got to be more open-minded about yourself and accept the good and the bad and the ugly inside. If you can't do that about yourself, you're not going to do it about other people or the world. A meditator keeps his mind open every second. He is constantly investigating life, inspecting his own experience, viewing existence in a detached and inquisitive way. Thus, he is constantly open to truth in any form, from any source, and at any time. This is the state of mind you need for liberation. What do we say in Pirkei Avot? Who is the wise man? The wise is a man who learns from all. How could you learn from all if you're all full of biases and all this stuff, and you close your mind to this or these kind of people? Okay. Okay, then he talks about enlightenment, which we'll put aside. Okay, that's the story, Jerry. This is really good stuff. You follow what these teachings are, and let me tell you, it makes a really big difference. Margaret?